You need to have a clear understanding of who you are.
Okay.
And that makes it much easier for you then to sell your district, so to speak.
Hey, this is Matthew Jennings with Peachjar Extra Credit, and in this episode, we are taking a deep dive on school and district marketing and branding. I happen to be here at Durham Public Schools with an absolute guru in this space, Sheena Cooper. Thank you so much for joining me here to talk about this. This is going to be an awesome session, so stay tuned. Sheena, tell us a little bit about yourself, Durham Public Schools, and some of your background.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for coming to Durham, North Carolina, to learn a little bit more about school marketing and branding. Again, I'm Sheena Cooper. I'm the Director of Marketing and Strategic Communication for Durham Public Schools. We are a district of about 32,000 students with 55 schools throughout the county. Yes, we are a large district, and we have a wonderful time serving our students every single day. It is a dream to be able to work in this community. For those of you who don't know, Durham is home to Research Triangle Park, so you can imagine all of the excitement and the innovation that happens here on a daily basis. We're home to Duke University, North Carolina Central University, NC State is just up the road, and UNC is in our backyard. So we've got a lot of great things happening in this area.
It's gorgeous. I absolutely loved the drive in here today. It's beautiful, the location. You mentioned one of the parks. I don't know what that is. For anybody else that doesn't, I get all the universities, but what was the first one you mentioned?
Research Triangle Park,
what is
RTP. It is home to the largest innovative centers within the U.S. Wow. We've got large companies here, so we've got all kinds of wonderful things that are happening every single day that enrich the lives of not just the people who live here, but everyone who lives here. So when you think about your big companies like your IBMs, your Ciscos, your Lenovo's, Apple is also expanding to this area. We've got Google that has a presence in this area. Meta is making its way here. This is a hotbed of innovation and technology.
That is awesome. So yeah, and you can tell just driving around, there's a lot happening here in Durham and the Raleigh area and just North Carolina I've been very impressed with. So marketing and branding, critical in an area like this because everyone else around you is doing it so well.
Absolutely.
So especially when it comes to our public school districts, it's really critical that we're telling our own stories, that we are in charge of our brand and our brand awareness, and we're active participants in that. So with that being said, let's just jump right into the deep end and talk me through Marketing 101 and how you see Marketing 101 and marketing in general different from just the routine, regular communications that we're all locked into doing at a school district?
Right. Well, I think oftentimes people haven't really thought about marketing school districts through that lens. And to be quite honest, in public education, we haven't had to do much of it previously. Growing up, and even I remember many years ago when I was coming up, you just went to the school that you were assigned to based upon where you lived, and that was it. Yeah. Our families now have so much choice, and there's so many more options that are available to them in regards to how they educate their students. And our families, in particular, they're much more savvy, to be quite honest. They go looking for it and they want to find the information. So how are we making sure that we're front and center and we're positioning ourselves to be a part of the conversation and also ultimately to be their number one choice for educating their students? That's
huge. Good reason to do it. So then let's dig a little deeper on what marketing is. So, you hear things like the SWOT analysis and marketing and communications, and oftentimes I feel like the lines get very blurry between comms and marketing. Even in design, work. I know a lot of comms directors, myself included, over the years. You get kind of tapped on the shoulder to, hey, we need a flyer design, right? Well, as a communications director, that may not be your skill set, right? And you've gone to school maybe through journalism, or you're a really excellent communicator, and someone else went to school for design specifically. That they're really different things. So talk to me a little bit about define marketing for us in your terms, and talk us through what that means and that whole SWOT analysis piece and component.
Absolutely. So the simplest way I can say, and I tell people all the time, communications and marketing, they're like peanut butter and jelly. They go together, but they're two totally different things.
Good way to put it.
Oftentimes I think about marketing as being the vehicle for sharing the message, and your communication is actually the message. So what car are you going to put your message into based upon who you're talking to and how you want them to receive that message? So those are the tools that you use to get your message out to your particular audience. And our marketing is really specific, and one thing that we've been really intentional about in Durham Public Schools is identifying audiences that need to know about our schools and about the programs that we offer and how we grow our students to be prepared for life beyond Durham Public Schools.
That's great. Well, so you mentioned something in there that sparked a thought, and it's really being intentional. So I love the analogy of communication versus marketing, and one being the actual meat of what that is, and one being the vehicle in which that's being delivered. That couldn't be clearer. And then you mentioned something there that really sparked an idea of just the intentionality that needs to go behind it and being strategic. Do you find that marketing is just, maybe a campaign on social media, or is it something you're really planning out more long term and being very strategic about?
Absolutely. It's all of those things. Sometimes we have things that come across our desks and we need a big push to get some action behind it right away. And other times we need to be more thoughtful about it because it's long term. I'm going back to what you said about the SWOT analysis. This all starts with having a great understanding of your organization, who you are and who you want to communicate with, and any opportunities that are within your area that you can take advantage of. So it's knowing those strengths, those weaknesses, your opportunities, and any threats that exist. And for us in particular in Durham Public Schools, we have a lot of charter schools that are in our area. And those who are familiar with charters know how that funding stream that they received comes directly from. So we don't get all of the resources to educate our students. We certainly share that with those charter schools. And so that is an opportunity for us to be more thoughtful about how we are reaching out to families when they are considering educating their students. And we know that families think about where to send their kids to school.
Yeah.
Early. Even some of them, even before those children are born, they're thinking about it when they move into neighborhoods, when they buy a home, when they decide to put down roots. And so what are the conversations that we're having now with their families early on so we can get in front of them and have them enroll their students in Durham Public Schools? That's
awesome. Yeah, my wife and I were that couple when we were looking for houses. And realtors also, that's one of the first things on the flyer. For any home, what school district that home resides in. And a really great school district makes a realtor's job a lot easier. And stay tuned, because on a future episode of Peachjar Extra Credit, we might dig into that a little bit more, and the relationship that you can have with realtors and how critical that is to reach families before they're even families.
It's necessary, and that's one of those key audiences for us when we talk about who we're targeting and what information we want to make sure we're getting to them. I have regular meetings with our local realtors. I take them in for school tours. We're bringing a team of our folks actually to one of their lunch and learn meetings to talk about school boundaries, as we have a redistricting project that we're doing right now. So it is critical that they are well informed about your school districts, because they're getting that information directly to their clients.
So let's talk about that realtor component just a little bit deeper for anybody that might be out there watching or listening that is thinking, wow, that's an untapped market for me. I'm not leaning into my realtors associations. What would your kind of high level advice be to get that started? You're working with your local association? Is it just through your neighbor or friend that's a realtor? What would your suggestion be there?
It's all of those things. Marketing is about relationships, right? It's about the relationship that you as the organization have with your prospective clients, your current clients, those that you want to keep coming back. And so you have to form that in a lot of different ways. And our relationship with our realtors continues to grow. They have quite the appetite for information regarding Durham Public Schools, because their families that are relocating here or relocating within the area want more information. So our local Association of Realtors, we meet with them annually for kind of a state of the schools address. But not only that, I go out to realtors' offices regularly. I show up at their weekly meetings. I share information about the latest updates or new programs that we're bringing on board, anything that they may have questions about, so they can better serve their clients. Because when they are well informed, in turn, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And at the end of the day, our job is to help them help their clients as it relates to Durham Public Schools.
So true. And, I'll just share that in one of my previous districts, Oceanside Unified School District, we hosted the first of its kind in San Diego County Realtor certification program. And really, it was a course designed around making it easier for our local realtors to sell homes in their neighborhood schools, in their neighborhoods around the schools that we had. And so one of the things my superintendent and I did then, Dr. Vitale, she's amazing, is we actually canvassed new builds. And you've probably done this too, where we would go in and find where the new condos, where the new apartments being built, where the new divisions out there where there's a sales office. And my superintendent and I would take a stack of one-page flyers about our school district, and we'd head on in and introduce ourselves. And we never had one of those offices not take us up on the offer to leave our flyers there for prospective families. And so when they would come in, before we would ever even have them, or before they even knew our district was their district, new families moving into the area are looking at these condos or apartments, and they're getting a one-pager about our district right there before they've even bought.
Absolutely. But think about the impression that leaves with families. When they're new to the area and they don't know much, and they get a welcome packet from their local school district saying, we're excited to have your family here. That leaves a lasting impression. Yeah. And that's one thing that we want to do. And it's all about making sure that we are keeping people in that funnel, so to speak,
yes.
Because if you're in marketing, you know that there's a funnel. It exists. And so we've adapted that a little bit for our purposes, from making sure that there's an awareness about our district to getting people to actually act and enroll their students.
It's all about your brand.
It sure is.
That's wonderful. We'll talk more about the funnel, that whole process. Before we get into that, though, walk me through some of the high-level aspects you would talk to a professional communicator, a public information officer, in relation to just an overall marketing strategy and plan.
Well, first of all, you need to know that marketing doesn't have to be hard.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be. I know we hear a lot of things, and there's something that pops up every single day, because it's not typically how we do things. It's an evolving industry. Yeah. It really is. But just as we've evolved as communicators and how we reach our families, the same applies to marketing. It doesn't have to be difficult, but you need to have a clear understanding of who you are.
Okay.
And that makes it much easier for you then to sell your district, so to speak. So I always walk people through an exercise, and I do it with a lot of our schools too, because not only are we marketing the district, but essentially we have all of our schools within the district that have their own brands and identities as well.
Great to empower them.
Absolutely. And while I say that, we are sitting in Lions Farm Elementary, which is Durham's newest school.
This must be a dream to market, by the way. This
place is gorgeous. From start to finish, it has been an amazing process from the ground up, literally. It just opened in August of 22. It is a fantastic facility. And we were able to really create the brand, working with the school's leadership, identifying those colors, the core values of this school, and how families would be received here. So it has been wonderful, and it's been super exciting to see it and have that brand truly come to life.
Yes, so empowering your school administrators to also take control of their narrative, their voice, their brand, which is huge. So you do have that district thing, and we can do a lot of work at the district level. But then, like you mentioned earlier, that organic level, parent-to-parent, peer-to-peer kind of thing, that's huge, and that bubbles up at the school site.
Absolutely. One of the things that we have district-wide is a parent ambassador program. And from my perspective, yes, it's about family engagement, and that is critical and it's important. But from a marketing perspective, those are our boots on the ground. Yeah. Those are our voices that are engaging those families. And let's be completely honest. Everyone expects you to say good things about the school district because you work for the school district.
Right.
But when parents say things to other parents, it resonates completely differently. So I utilize our parent ambassadors as another megaphone for the district, so to speak, to share all of those great news, information and details with our families, to really be our cheerleaders for the district, because they have a way of connecting with each other that, quite honestly, we as district employees can't.
And other, I guess, private companies would call your family ambassadors brand ambassadors.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what it comes, and that's what we're talking about here today, right? Which is phenomenal. And they do a really wonderful job of telling your story at that organic level. So I heard a couple of things in there. As far as it not being too hard, you're probably looking at things that what makes your school or district unique.
What makes your school or district unique? How would you describe your school? What are those key terms? Really listing out 3 to 5 bullet points that are pride points for your district.
Okay.
This ultimately is going to help create your elevator speech, right?
Yes.
And you want everybody to be empowered with that quick snippet of information. And speaking of brand ambassadors, it's not only our parents, every single employee of your district is a brand ambassador.
Yes.
And you should think of them as such. And that is anyone who works in your central services division, down to those who are on the front lines of serving our students, from our teachers, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, those who support the facilities. Everyone is a brand ambassador, and we should treat them as such.
That's huge. So then, what are some of the really high-level components of a good communications and marketing plan?
Absolutely. Goals and objectives.
Okay.
You got to know what you want to achieve.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Your goal. So a goal.
Maybe increase student enrollment.
Right.
Or,
Increasing
okay.
student enrollment. I mean, but then you also want to kind of drill down on that too,
Okay.
right? So it just can be increasing student enrollment. Like increasing student enrollment, how are you going to do that, right? And that gets down to more of those strategies and those tactics of how you actually go after that goal. Making sure that things are smart, making sure that they're measurable, so you have something to work towards.
That's good.
Absolutely. And then also your content and your messaging is a key component of that communications plan. So if our goal is to increase enrollment, then what are we telling people about that?
What's that message?
What is that message? How are we sharing it with them? And keeping your audience in mind, because how you share that with one audience is going to be different for another audience. And it all depends on that vehicle that you put it in to share it, right?
Totally.
So you can see how all of these start to come together to really create a solid plan. So there is some thought and strategy behind deploying your message.
Okay. And then I know I'm already thinking it. Probably people that are listening are like, okay, but what is it going to cost me? So what about the cost in hours and tangible costs?
Right. Time is critical. You need time to think. Just go ahead and take some time and put it aside for really thinking through your strategy and what makes sense for your district. I think we all know that in our industry, there's not a lot of additional resources available to spend on marketing, but there are things that you can do, especially as it relates to advocating for marketing and strategic communication within your district with your district leaders, that you can put in some groundwork now to help you get to where you need to be. Prime example. One of the things that we know, because our area is pretty transient, and we've got lots of people moving here for all the businesses that are relocating to the area, we need to get in front of families before they even relocate here or come for a visit. Because what is the first thing that they do? They go online and they Google.
Yeah.
They Google schools in Durham, North Carolina. So what is that digital presence look like? What does it look like? When they type in good schools in Durham or great schools in Durham, North Carolina, what are they finding?
Yeah.
Is your school district popping up at the top of that? So we got to keep all of that in mind. We do quite a bit of digital advertising. We have a digital ad spend. We previously didn't have one, but we know how critical that is because people are doing their search online. And if we're not popping up when they do that search,
You're not
then
part of the conversation.
we're not a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So we've got to be more proactive in those spaces. And you can liken this to your experience with any other brand. I have a personal relationship with Amazon, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so every time I log into Amazon, what do? They say, hello, Sheena. Last time you bought this, we think you might be interested in this. Oh, by
Very
the way,
helpful.
this is on sale. This is the constant conversation we should be thinking about having with our families. And to be completely honest with you, they're trained that way based upon all of the other products and organizations and companies in the area or in their sphere, because they're conditioned to expect that. So we have to be a little bit more on top of it when it comes to that, because that's what they want. That's
So true.
what they've grown accustomed to.
Yeah, and they're receiving information from you name it, the hairstylist to the last thing they bought at some random shop. I mean, yeah, so they are accustomed to that. You mentioned a couple of things that I want to touch on. One is research, huge part of any marketing plan. Again, we're still kind of talking about these high-level components of building a plan. Research is critical, and you brought up a couple of really great examples of that. And also getting some data together on the front end, because I imagine if marketing isn't a huge component of your strategy now, you're going to need to put some pieces together and present that to your superintendent or executive cabinet, maybe even your board of education, and kind of more or less sell what needs to be done. So if you're not really leaning into marketing right now, you're going to need to make that case. Have you found that to be the case? Have you had to show value in your work? Because what the other thing that I wanted to mention was the metrics behind this. Measurable goals was another thing you kind of threw out there that was solid gold. Measurable goals. Have you found having those measurable goals are critical in your plan and have helped you continue to be more effective in the way you use your marketing strategy?
Certainly.
Okay.
So if having those metrics and having the data and the information, I'll use our digital ads as an example of that. I get monthly reports to see how well they're performing. And if something isn't performing, the beautiful thing about marketing, if it's not working, guess what? You can change it. And that's the great part. You have the opportunity to be as flexible and creative as you want to be when doing your marketing. So don't think that this is it, it's set in stone, and if it doesn't work, then it's a fail. No, there's never a fail. There's always opportunities. So looking at those digital ads, when I'm getting the monthly numbers on those, and I'm seeing our impressions, and I'm seeing where people, how much time they spend on our website after that, then there's an opportunity for me to really look at what are we doing that's working well, and if there was a fall or a drop in one area, how do I fix it next time, right? So there's always, and that's the beautiful thing, there are lots of ways you can measure the effectiveness of your marketing. It isn't always the metrics of our impressions on our digital ads. It can be other things too. But you just have to understand your goals, understand your objectives, and then measure accordingly. But for me, when I can walk into our district leadership meeting and everyone's asking, how well did our ads perform? And I said, well, not only were we performing above the national average with click-through rate, but we were able to drive this many people to our website. They stayed on our website this long, and they were on this page for that long. So that tells me that we were able to convert some of those people, which is fantastic, depending on where you have them directed on your site. Not only that, we have over 7 million impressions on digital ads. So we know that people are looking at our ads, they're taking notice, and that's important because it's about converting families, but it's also about awareness too. So we want to think about all of those things as what we're doing.
That's huge. You mentioned a couple of things in there that I just want to touch on, but one of them is data, collecting that data and making sure you're acting on that. I hear in my head right now, Trinette Marquis, she's the executive director at CalSPRA, California School Public Relations Association. She's amazing, but she's a data guru, and she kind of goes around the country talking about how critical it is. I did another Peachjar Extra Credit episode with Dr. Whitley at Cumberland County Schools, and he was also talking about how they use data when it comes to community engagement. And when they get that information back through evaluative forms and different things and surveys, they're able to pivot based on that information they're given and be more strategic and more effective. So just like all the other data we're using, whether it's you're looking at how much information you're sending out through your email or how many times you're texting parents and making changes based on that data, you nailed it. Marketing it's no different.
Right.
So you've got to look at what's working, what's not, and be flexible enough to make those changes.
Yes, you do. And that, again, that's the beauty of it. You can be that flexible and you can make those changes. And it doesn't have to be a grand digital ad campaign for enrollment. It could just simply start with putting some ads on Facebook or Instagram. Social media is a powerful tool. We should use it to our advantage when we can. And then it's actually pretty cost effective to do a social media campaign. And you can start there. You can get the data and information you need from that, and then take that back to your executive leadership and say, hey, this is what's working. We're reaching families this way. You can look at the engagements. You can look at the likes. You can look at the shares. All of this is really great information to show how people are resonating with your message.
Yeah, and I want to get into the marketing funnel, but you brought up another great thing that I do talk to a lot of other PIOs And I ask a lot, do you advertise on social media? And I hear back a lot, no, I've never done that. And it's really not that difficult. And let me give you just one easy strategy you can start right now today. I did this in my previous district and it was very effective. And we just started paying for some ads for our enrollment and registration. So TK, pre-K, kindergarten, we would get some really beautiful flyers together and boost the ads out there on social media. And our student services department absolutely confirmed that when those ads went out, they had an influx of registrations. So you get to go in there and really dial the analytics to specific radiuses, target groups of parents or specific ages of people. And it works. It really is.
It works. And we're doing the same thing right now. We're doing a big push for kindergarten enrollment. Yeah. And one thing that I'm always mindful of, again, understanding and knowing your audience and knowing who you're talking to. When I do those ads, I also do them in Spanish language as well.
Yes.
We have about a third of our student population that are Spanish speaking at home. So it is extremely critical that we are able to communicate with their families too. So I do all of the ads that I do digitally, I do them in English and in Spanish. And in some cases, depending on the ad, there's more engagement on the Spanish speaking ad than there is on the English. So there's lots of opportunity, but of course, it's just being thoughtful and knowing your audience, knowing who you're talking to, understanding your community, and understanding your parents and your family. So that's where that research comes in and really taking that deeper dive into knowing who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, and what you want them to do.
I love that. And that's an easy tactic you can take and deploy right now and see what your return is. So you mentioned earlier the marketing funnel, like that funnel for success. Just high level, talk me through what that is.
Again, so literally a funnel.
Okay.
The widest part of your funnel is awareness. So you want people to be aware of who you are as an organization. They'll say, hey, I've heard about Durham Public Schools, or I hear that they've got this really great school doing this thing, or I know that they offer this program. We want people in your community to be aware. Then we want them to be interested, like, wow, that school has this cool program. I want to learn more about it. So they start to dig a little bit deeper. That's when we start to direct some different messaging to them. We hopefully get them to the school for a visit. And then we get to decision time. And it's like, wow, is this the right program for me? I think it is. And then ultimately we get them to action, which is enrolling. So we want to work them through that funnel. And all of your messages and all of your marketing should help facilitate them moving through that funnel from awareness to action.
That makes it really easy to visualize. Mm-hmm. So can you talk to me then specifically in regards to Durham? What has your experience been? And can you share some data or information around your marketing efforts and what you've seen as a result?
Yeah, so one thing that we know in Durham is that we have a lot of opportunity here. There is a large percentage of students who live within our county who do not attend Durham Public Schools. They attend charter schools or private institutions. And so when we talk about the market share for students in Durham County, we have a smaller percentage of that. So that is why it's necessary for us to be more proactive in our marketing. And one thing I want us to be considerate of, too, is that while we're talking so much about external families and engaging them, you can market to your internal families as well. Once again, and you should. They are an active audience. Oftentimes you think once we have them as families, we're just communicating with them. So we're going to send them messages, text, email, whatever the case may be. But no, we still have to market to those families as well. So keep that in mind too. We don't want to put all of our efforts towards our external audience and sacrifice our internal as well. So we want to make sure that we might have to tailor the message slightly, but they're a critical audience as well, so we want to keep them in mind.
That's good. You mentioned something there that I also find some PIOs don't know. Do you know your capture rate? So do you know how many students live within the boundaries of your school district? And then you take that number and you put that up against how many students are attending your school district, and that gives you your capture rate. So again, it's that how many kiddos live in your district versus how many kiddos are actually attending. And I find a lot of people don't really know what that number is.
Right. And when you say you want to enroll, you're like, we're going to go after every student. But how many students are there actually? Yeah. Let's understand those numbers, and then let's develop strategies for how to get to those families so they can ultimately enroll in your school district.
Exactly. And it goes to, so many of us are in declining enrollment across the nation. It's not limited to public schools, charters, privates.
Online school,
Online schools.
home schools.
Yep.
There's lots more. There's so many more options.
That's right.
Families have more choice now than they ever have had.
Ever.
So there's if you want to call it competition, sure. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal of educating students.
That's right.
However, when we look at it from our seat, it does look a little different.
It does, yeah. And since we are all experiencing that decline in enrollment, really making sure you're tending to those touch points at every level, your current families and perspective is critical. So there is, I remember talking to you about this earlier, kind of that five-pronged approach to marketing. Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yes, so we actually we have a marketing plan. And this is another thing, too. I know a lot of school districts have a strategic communications plan, or they have a communications plan, but they don't necessarily have a marketing plan. I encourage you to have a marketing plan. One thing that we've done in Durham Public Schools is we've actually merged our communications and our marketing plan because they're complementary. So we call it a MarCom plan.
MarCom plan. Okay,
there you
cool.
go. So we, within our MarCom plan, we have a five-pronged approach for how we do marketing, and that's through print, it's through digital, outdoor advertising, public service, and I'll get to kind of explain that a little bit, and then also experiential. Okay. So we're really looking at making deposits in these 5 different areas, and there's research that supports why we are focusing on these 5 areas, because the consumers are seeking information through these different mediums. Right. And so that's why we focus on that 5-pronged approach. And when we do them all together, they complement each other wonderfully. And the idea is to saturate the market, right?
Yeah.
So when someone gets a flyer, they're like, oh, Durham Public Schools. And then they're like at home on their computer and they're like, wait, there's another ad for Durham Public Schools. Then they're driving down the street and they might see a billboard for Durham Public Schools. And then they hear a commercial on the radio for Durham Public Schools. And then they show up at an event and they see Durham Public Schools. So that is how we want to make sure our families, they can not only see Durham Public Schools, but they can touch it, they can feel it, and we can immerse them into the brand.
Okay, so if I can, with you, just explore that just a little bit then. Let's talk about each one of those 5, just kind of high level, so listeners can understand a little bit better about what they might be getting into if they want to lean into any one of those areas. So let's start with print.
Yep.
What are you doing? What are you doing
right.
for print?
So one of the things that we've launched as part of our print initiative is a magazine. It's called the Spark Insider Magazine. Okay. It's a fantastic publication. And what makes it fantastic is that it's telling the stories about our students, our staff, all the wonderful things that they're learning, our innovative programs in Durham Public Schools. It really showcases the district beautifully. The marketing and the strategy behind it is we've partnered with a local publication that is well regarded in this area, and it is a part of their distribution within their magazine. So it goes directly to their subscribers. And honestly, a majority of their subscribers are not Durham Public Schools families.
Okay.
So I'm getting great content, high quality publication into the hands of families so they can learn more about our product.
That's great. Is that accessible digitally as well?
It absolutely is, and it's also available in Spanish.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we will link to that in the description.
Fantastic.
So you'll be able to check out what that looks like and maybe, get some best practices you can borrow from that. All right, let's talk about that digital component you had mentioned. Talk to me through kind of high level what that looks like.
So those are those digital ads that I was talking about, making sure that we have a footprint there. But then as we move forward, we're going to see that expand a little bit. So it goes beyond ads. It really looks at search engine optimization, making sure that when people type in certain keywords that our schools are popping up top of the list. It's making sure that all of our assets online are nice and cleaned up. There's nothing... you hate when somebody types in something and then you see a picture and it's not necessarily the picture that you want them to see. And sometimes that happens just simply because people are contributing to all kinds of things online. But what are we doing in those spaces to make sure that we are putting the best foot forward for our district?
I love that. All right. And then the third was outdoor?
Outdoor advertising. I know billboards can be expensive and people have different feelings about billboards. And in this case, I think it really does support the overall awareness campaign because it's hard to track the conversions on that. So when you do things, just understand your intentions and know what the intended goal is. But also one thing that we've done is we've had to get creative with our resources because because billboards are expensive, because ads on buses are expensive. But one thing that I do know is that we have a fleet of vehicles in Durham Public Schools.
Yes.
And so we've wrapped our box trucks, and we're looking at putting magnets on other vehicles that advertise different opportunities within our district. The wraps that we have now talk about our employment opportunities.
Great.
We all need more employees in Durham Public Schools, as I know that your school districts are looking for employees as well. So we've put that branding on our box trucks with a QR code for them to scan to go directly to our job opportunities.
And that's great because, you might be doing city buses. And if you're doing city buses, this isn't a knock on that.
No.
But that comes and goes.
Absolutely.
So your white fleet, it's always there.
Right. And so that's a good thing. The shelf life on that is a lot longer.
Yeah.
We can make those dollars stretch. But that doesn't mean I'm not doing advertising with city buses, because it's in that Marcom plan as well. Again, this is about getting the message out to as many people as possible, but being responsible with the resources that we have.
Can we talk about resources just a little bit? How do you justify the budget, and what kind of data are you collecting? Because you're right, it's really tough to collect information on a billboard. But you could drive down the freeway and see Nike's got stuff up, Apple's got stuff up, and they don't know if that ad for their new iPad drove any traffic whatsoever to somebody purchasing an iPad. But it's about that brand awareness and always being out there in the space, like you had mentioned earlier. Talk to me a little bit about what you might talk to a communicator or a PIO that's not doing bus wraps or city buses or billboards. How can they make that justification? What do they need to go in armed with to talk to their superintendent or their executive board?
You need to go in with data. So there's tons of research out there that shows the effectiveness of certain mediums and how you use them. So I know that when I do something in print, print ads are 50 or no, that's not I don't have the correct stat off the top of my head, but the number is, print ads are like 90% more effective once someone sees something in the outdoor space. Okay. So you've got to make those connections for your executive leadership to say, if we do billboard and if we do these print ads, we can guarantee more eyes on this. This is going to support this message. Brand recognition among consumers is going to be more relevant. All of these kinds of things. The research exists. You just have to go and find it. The same thing with radio. When you have radio and digital ads, what that means when they work together and how they support the overarching message that you're trying to get to your clients, consumers. So just being mindful of how those work hand in hand, because independently, yes, they can work, but when they come together, that's when the magic happens.
That's great, and it all goes back to your marketing plan, which
exactly.
you talk to your superintendent and your executive leadership, probably your board. It might even go directly back to board goals and priorities that your district has set aside and has publicly announced these are our priorities. That could be another way that you kind of justify that. So that data, and also this is how I'm supporting the goals of our district. I believe the fourth was public service. Talk to me about public service.
Right, and public service is what I really consider to be that commercials, television commercials, radio ads, but to be completely honest, just video content in general, because that can be placed a lot of different places. Now we have ads on YouTube and on your streaming services. So we have to really think creatively about where our people are and how they're skewing younger, right? And so you have to keep all of these demographics in mind when communicating with families, because they receive their information in a lot of different places. People aren't necessarily watching traditional television like they used to be. So where are they getting, where's their entertainment? That's where we need to be. So thinking about how you can show up in their lives naturally, because that's also going to help with brand recognition as well.
That's great. And we know that so many of our parents, so many of us in general, are getting news and information on social media. And so it goes back to you've got to have that space. I believe the fifth was experiential.
Yes. So we want people to experience the brand, right? And what does that look like? So this past February, we kicked off kindergarten enrollment. And so we worked together with our local foundation, and we had book bags with information about enrollment. There were school supplies for the kids, and we delivered those to daycares and preschools throughout the county.
That's cool.
So students received, their parents received received information about how to enroll, literally walking them through the process, everything that they need, a kindergarten readiness list, a book list so they can get their kids ready. The kids got crayons and coloring sheets and stickers, really building that excitement around kindergarten, but also getting them ready for the next steps and to enroll. So we're driving students to Durham Public Schools and hopefully getting in front of them early enough so they can start that process. And
That's a great tactic.
So it was fantastic. Our superintendent was literally out putting backpacks on kids, getting them ready. It was wonderful, and it was so well received by our community and families.
That's awesome, and what a great visual that is. Your superintendent out there putting backpacks on students, and that also a great video. I mean, and you mentioned earlier too that video is such a key component. I would agree with that. I found that extremely effective in the districts that I was working in. And so if you're not leveraging the power or harnessing the power of video, we all know that a picture's worth 1,000 words. A video just knocks that out of the water. So lean into video. We also have resources on Peachjar Extra Credit or on even our social media feeds where we're trying to help people understand how to use and leverage video even more effectively. But a really big component, because you could get video of your superintendent putting backpacks on students and reuse that throughout the year in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And just think about where you can share that, whether it's on your website, whether it's in a newsletter that you send to families, whether that is on social media, which then gets, and Reels are all the rage.
Yes.
And they're amazing because they get so many more eyes on your content. So thinking about all these different areas in which you can use that and making it snackable, right?
Yes. Snackable. You just keep dropping solid gold that I have to keep going back to. So you're right. And Reels are incredible. You've got to think, like, just for the viewers out there, you've probably done this even today. You get on Facebook or whatever, or YouTube, and somehow you end up on those shorts. You end up on the Reels, and you're just stuck in
You're sucked in.
You're sucked into the vortex, and that algorithm gets you. But it's that snackable size. And so when you go out, visit school sites, kind of going back to what you mentioned at the beginning, find out what makes you unique, find out what makes you different, find out what makes you special. And when you see that special out at a site, grab some video of that.
Certainly.
And then you can use that in so many different ways. And one of those is if you're not leaning into the Reels and the shorts,
just dip your toe in the water.
Yep.
Try it and see what happens. It's amazing. And,
You will get a lot more
the
views.
reach is out of this world. And on things that you typically think, you're like, oh, we probably won't get so many eyes on this. So when our box trucks launched, we're like, we're going to make a reel out of this. It's like over 10,000. And we're
cool.
like, that is, for us, that was like our first one. We're like, we're just going to try this. And they're like, how in the world did this happen in like 2 days? Over 10,000 in 2 days.
That's so cool.
So that means people were just... It was fantastic for us. So.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. You just see a lot more interaction, engagement. You see a lot more shares and a lot more views on those shorter, snackable, bite-sized things.
And think about when they're always there. So likely that reel is still getting eyes on it right now, and I'm not even aware. And I was just like, oh, we're over several thousand, and it's only been, 12 hours. But think about what that does for your organization long term.
Huge. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, one of the big components that I want to end with is going back to that data. Talk to me about metrics and how you kind of measure the metrics and the return on your investment that we've just kind of gone through and talked about.
Absolutely. So that's one of the key things that your district leadership is going to be very interested in is how are we measuring this? How do we know that it's working? And again, there are a lot of different ways you can do that. Of course, brand awareness, making sure that as many people within your identified target audiences know about you and your school district, your literal return on investment. And for some people that equates to dollars. So I'm investing, $300 in this social media push on Facebook. What is that getting me in return? Yeah. Keep in mind, if you spent $300 on an enrollment ad on Facebook and you got one student to enroll, you've made that back, tenfold.
Yes.
So keep that in mind, that there's a lot of power in what you're doing in those spaces. So making sure you can connect those dots, right? Conversion rates. So when you're looking at your website and all those kinds of things, seeing how you're converting from that perspective. Ad performance, we've talked about digital ads, the number of impressions, and following that trail from we had this many eyes on it to this many people came to the website. They stayed on the website this long. Somebody actually clicked this person they enrolled. You can track that on your website. Web analytics, of course, getting into that, monitoring your traffic to see if there are any upticks in that based upon any ad campaigns that you have going on. One thing that I love to do, especially with our digital ads, I want to attach it to a very specific URL so I can follow the traffic for that. So it's just not people are just coming to our homepage, but they are going somewhere very specifically, so I'm able to manage and monitor that. And then leads, right? Are people actually calling and saying, I'm interested in learning more, or how do I enroll? And this looks a lot of different ways depending on what you have deployed in your district, whether you're sending information through newsletters, partnership organizations. One thing that I absolutely think is fantastic is that we've worked with our Register of Deeds office, because you have to have a birth certificate to enroll. Okay. So making sure that there's information about Durham Public Schools with our county partners on their website, so they know directly where to come to when it's time to enroll their students for school. So again, not hard. You just have to be thoughtful and find those opportunities.
That's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. You've shared a lot of strategies and tactics, from wrapping or at least putting QR codes on district vehicles to digital and print ads. A lot of really great things that we've covered today. So if you have any questions about any of that, kind of how that works, feel free to reach out to us. I know Sheena would be happy to answer any questions. So you can look us up. We'll have some information in the description as well that you can get in touch with us if you have heard something in here and you're like, I need a little more intel on that. I hope you liked this, and be sure to like, share, comment, and follow for more. Engage in the comments. I know that we'll get in there. If you have questions, feel free to comment. We'll get in there and write back, and that would be great dialogue. Sheena, I can't thank you enough for spending this time with me today and talking through marketing and branding, because for me, I do feel like it gets kind of messy between communications and that marketing and branding component. But when I saw your presentation, it just clicked and made a lot of sense there. It doesn't have to be convoluted and messy. They are two different strategies that complement each other. I can't thank you enough for taking your time to share it today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's it for now. Stay tuned to Peachjar Extra Credit. We're going to be bringing you a lot more content just like this. We'll see you around.